to death. So if you don't have the Spirit, you don't have life. Verse 7, the mindset of the flesh is hostile to God because it does not submit to God's law. Indeed, it is unable to do so. This is a description of our fallenness, that our flesh is hostile to God. It does not submit to God's law. It's unable to do so. Now, why is the mindset of the flesh death? Why is it death? And why is the mindset of the flesh hostility towards God? 3 reasons. First, the flesh, what does the flesh do? What does the mindset of the flesh do? The flesh eagerly puts someone or something in God's place. This is what the flesh does. And so when you become a parent and you want to love your kids, you do love your kids, and you want them to grow, and you want them to change, and you want them to love God. What we have to understand about these glorious, marvelous children that God gives to us is that they have the flesh. And naturally what the flesh is doing is that they're prone, just like we are, to put something else in the place of God. That's what's going on in our hearts all day long, apart from the working of God's Spirit. That we'll put something else there. The flesh creates idols. Verse 7, the mindset of the flesh is hostile to God because it doesn't submit to God's law. The flesh does not recognize God as God. The flesh does not submit to God. But that place of God will not remain empty. That the flesh says, God, you're not God. This is God. This is God. And it's often a subconscious experience where our flesh will exchange the glory of God. We'll look at the Word of God, the things of God, and say, totally insignificant. What's really important is what's happening on TikTok, or what's happening in the political world, or what's happening on the football field, or what's happening at school with all my friends. That's important. Word of God, not important. That's what the flesh does. The glory of God, the greatness of God in creation, totally insignificant. Doesn't matter. Doesn't move me one bit. Doesn't move me at all. I just want to be liked. What's most important is that I'm liked by people, or whatever it is. It's our flesh that exchanges the glory of God for idols. This is why it's hostility towards God. Reason number 2 is that we sin when we consciously or unconsciously say, God, you are not God, something else is God. So why do we sin? The essence of sin is that we put something else there. And when something else is there, my reputation, my sexual desires, greed, security, my family, my career, whatever it is, when something goes in that spot, what immediately follows will be sin. It will be sin because we're worshiping something other than God. We're worshiping something other than the creator of the universe. And so the flesh is hostility towards God. I mean, just think about sexual desires. I hear this all the time. You know, someone will say something like this. They'll say, I love my girlfriend, and we've been together for 2 years. I love her. I really care about her, and we're sleeping together, but I love her. And how in the world could that be hostility towards God? How could that be wrong? And the answer is that God, there's a lot of reasons, a lot of answers. But God says that sex is to be between one man and one woman within the covenant of marriage. And when we violate God's design for marriage, what we're saying is, God, you're not God. What you say does not go. What I say goes. What I say is most important. What I think is the most important thing. And so we put ourselves in the place of God, and then from there will flow sin. The third reason it's hostility towards God is because the flesh defends, excuses, and justifies our idolatry at all costs. So not only do we put false gods into place, we will defend, excuse, and justify our idolatry at all costs. Think about Exodus, the story of Exodus. In chapter 32, what we see is that the nation of Israel, they're gathered around the mountain of God, and Moses is up on the mountain, and all these people, over 1 million people, had seen the power of God deliver them from the nation of Egypt through the plagues. That God, by God's incredible power, He redeems, He saves all these people. And He says, I'm taking you to the promised land. And He makes a covenant with them and gives them the 10 commandments. But in Exodus 32, Moses is up on the mountain. And while he's up on the mountain, the people say, we don't know what to do with this Moses guy. So they say, let's make some gods in our own image. So they make a golden calf. They make a golden calf, and they start celebrating and sinning all around this golden calf. And God says to Moses, hey, they're down there worshiping the golden calf. You got to go down there. So in verse 21, Exodus 32:21, it says, he said to Aaron, this is what Moses says to Aaron, what did these people do to you that led them into such great sin? Verse 22, do not be angry, my Lord, Aaron answered. Moses left Aaron in charge. You know how prone these people are to evil. They said to me, make us gods who will go up before us. As for this fellow Moses who brought us up out of Egypt, we don't know what has happened to him. So I told them, whoever has any gold jewelry, take it off. I love this. And then they gave me the gold and threw it into the fire, and out came this calf. That's Aaron's response. I don't even know what happened. What even happened here? You know how prone to evil these people are? All we did is throw it in the fire, then out came this calf. And you read it, and it's so silly, and this is what's so interesting, is that Aaron doesn't believe that happened. He doesn't believe that's what happened, but he's saying it. And so why is he doing that? He's doing that to defend himself, his own rebellion against God, that he's lying to himself to protect himself from his own evil. And see, that's what the flesh does. It creates gods, then it defends those gods. It creates gods, and then it lies to ourselves. We end up lying to ourselves over it. And see, if all we have is the flesh, then all we have is the flesh. There's no life there. Paul says in verse 8, those who are in the flesh cannot please God.